Welcome to Women in Leadership Talk, where you'll hear from successful women who are empowering other women with their stories of adversity, resiliency, and success. And here is your host, Vicki Bradley, founder and CEO of Women in Leadership Empowered.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We know you have a choice, so we're grateful when you chime in and listen to the amazing guests that we have joining us. And today we have Dr. Benah Parker joining us from Phoenix, Arizona. So Benah, thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here, and we've got our audience calling in or listening in from 50 plus countries. I don't even know how many countries we're at now. So we're super grateful for that too. And audience, please do leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing, or if there's topics you want to hear us talking about. Please do put that, in comments, or email me at vicki@willempowered.com. Would love to hear from you and just be able to bring you the voices that you want to hear. And that's sort of how the Women in Leadership Talk podcast came to be. Was because clients and our community kept saying, oh, how are we going to hear all these great voices? And so that's how our podcast actually came to fruition, was bringing you great voices, great content, and hopefully nuggets that you can walk away with and implement after you've listened to an episode. So thanks so much for being here. So Benah, let me give our audience just a little bit of background on you and share with them why you're here today and joining us. And then we can jump right into conversation. How does that sound?
Sounds perfect.
Okay, perfect. So Dr. Benah Parker, she's a social psychologist, trusted advisor, and executive coach for high-performing leaders who want to expand their influences without losing themselves in the process. She's the founder of Level 42 Consulting. She helps leaders move beyond burnout, perfectionism, and overfunctioning, and redefine success on their own terms. She's known for her clarity, compassion, and strategic insight. Benah blends applied psychology with executive expertise to unlocking lasting transformation. As a cancer survivor, she also brings hard-won wisdom about resilience, identity, and leading through uncertainty. So, Benah, thank you for being here, and thank you for being a survivor of cancer. That's no easy journey to navigate. And,
coming on 15 years this summer.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome to hear. And a tough one to go through, and teaches us a lot, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just jump in? So talk to us about, why you do what you do and what has led you down this path. So really your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, my goal is to help leaders lead without losing themselves in the process. I started studying leadership when I was 14 in high school. I went to my first leadership camp kind of thing. And I've always just been fascinated by the ripple effects that leaders have. So as I got into psychology, as I got my PhD in social psychology, I realized I have kind of the ability to add these insights about how identity and behavior and leadership, how they all intersect. And so because in the work I've done, both, in my career before I became a consultant and coach, which it's been over 8 years now, but in that prior career, I would see these brilliant, capable people burning out, in part because they're trying to meet impossible standards. They're stuck with this identity that may have gotten them to one level of success, but it's keeping them in that comfort zone. Is keeping them from taking their next steps. And so I realized there was this opportunity to work with people who are already excellent, but then they're feeling stuck. And they're stuck not because they're failing, but because they've outgrown that version of success that got them to where they are.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and that we see that a lot, right? And I think especially for women in particular, where they get to a place where, that's what resonated for me was the focus on burnout, perfectionism, because we think we have to wear every single hat that the universe puts out there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, is there a hat? Let's put that one on too. Let's put on all the hats.
Let's put them all on, right? And see where we go.
Yeah, it's not all the time. Not all at once. No.
Yeah. And it's tough, right? Because I think because you talked about identity, you see this a lot, because especially like after you have kids, because it's like, okay, now I'm a mom, I'm also a career, I'm a wife. And so you're trying to be all of these things. And, and then one day you wake up and you go, oh my gosh, who am I? Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always
So,
come back to, there's a scene in Alice in Wonderland where the caterpillar, I mean, he's got his little hookah, and his question is, who are you?
yeah.
And that was a question that just kind of always stuck with me. I think I even wrote about it in my applications for grad school. This identity piece has just always been really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I'd love to talk about that a little bit because you yourself have, had to navigate that path of
Yeah.
cancer. And what were some of the, I want to be thoughtful about how I ask this, but what were some of the challenges around identity that you went through when navigating that?
Yeah, when I was diagnosed, like I said, it'll be 15 years in July. So at the time, my kids were 2 and 4. I
Wow.
was the sole income for our family. My husband was a stay-at-home dad. And I honestly, at the time, I was considering a run for state office.
Okay, talk about overachiever audience.
I know there's a lot going on. And when I was diagnosed, I was like, I don't have time for cancer. I'm too busy. I have too much going on. And of course, when something like that comes, it was breast cancer. And I've had 9 surgeries in the last 15 years. I had chemo. I did 10 years of treatment, this kind of thing. It's definitely a moment that you sit back and go, okay, there's a lot going on that I don't control. So what are the parts that I can control? And for me, a lot of that was choosing the identities that are the most important and knowing that I can switch them as things need. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, my then husband and I, we did get a divorce during that treatment. But we co-parent very well. So that's good. Nice. But there's this stage where you're going, okay, I was already mom and leader and employee and all of these things. And now I'm also cancer patient and cancer survivor. And how does that all fit in that I'm not compromising the mom piece or the, to some extent, the employee piece and the breadwinner piece and all those other things. So it was a lot to juggle.
No kidding. No kidding. And you said something there I think is so important that I would like us to reemphasize and spend a minute on that when you talked about, for this stage. Mm-hmm. Because I think sometimes we get caught in that headspace of once I decide this, then I'm stuck there. And people forget that it's a moment in time, right? Yes. Because you are in different stages at different points. In your situation, you had very young kids, you have a thriving career, you're the breadwinner, and the cancer showed up. Mm-hmm. And so knowing that that does not actually define you though. So how did you learn to be who you are being now?
I think, and this is the thing I work with a lot with my clients. I have a whole framework about the strategic identity shift. And it's this idea of recognizing, for most of us, we pick up our identities along the way. Our identities are handed to us based on where you're born, your family structure, your religious upbringing. There's so many different ways that people will tell you who you are and who you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, for many of us, that works fine up to a point. And then you get to that stage where life gives you other things. You have to do these shifts. But in a lot of the work I do, it's about the fact that we can be intentional with those shifts. We can figure out if I'm the leader I am now, but the leader I am right now isn't sustainable, or I want to be a better leader. I'm getting feedback. I know some things need to change. So it becomes about what is the identity that you have to create and embrace and choose to step into that next level. So even as a cancer survivor, there were years where that cancer identity, not through choice necessarily, but it was pretty defining when you're bald, right? Yeah. People look at you and they know something is going on. But in the years since, like I said, it's been 15 years. There are certain moments that I think, okay, yes, cancer has always been a part of my life. There's certain, I still see my oncologist twice a year. I still do these things. And yet it's less defining than it was even 14 years ago, right? Yeah. So it's about being intentional with the identities that are going to serve you for where you want to go. Mm-hmm. And I think the challenge is because so many of us, like I said, we pick up our identities by default, that we don't take that moment to look around and go, this identity isn't necessarily serving me anymore. and what are the tweaks I need to make. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be a complete overhaul, but it might just be going, okay, my values, yes, I still value a lot of the same things, but the way that looks, the way we operationalize those values is going to change. So how do my behaviors have to change to be in alignment with that?
Oh, I love that you brought that up, because that's where I was going to go actually, was how do values play into that? Because I mean, that's such an important aspect of connecting and understanding what are your values, and are they being compromised when you're trying to wear an identity that is no longer serving you?
Yes.
And that's, I mean, I talk a lot about that with my clients, and went through it myself, because I also had a health scare, not cancer, but it made me step back and really start to look at and identify, who am I?
Yeah.
Right? Because I was very much mom and career, and we wear many, many hats, but wherever we go, there we are.
Exactly.
Right. So that's why the
Bring
values.
a lot of that baggage with us.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And so those values become such an important aspect of who you're being and how you're being in the world.
Exactly. Yeah. With my clients, I mean, I have an exercise that all my clients start with, there's a PDF of core values, because so many people that you talk to, especially leaders, they go, oh, no, I know what my core values are. And I'm like, okay, tell me your top 5.
Yeah. I love it.
You're in the headlights, like, family and fun. And I'm like, no, we're going to do, like, let's dig in. Because when you can say, this is what matters most to me at this stage. And like I said, some of them will stay consistent throughout your life, but the flavor might change. Yeah. Like you might say, oh, I value family. But as you dig in and you go, okay, but there's work relationships and there's friend relationships. Like right now, my youngest just graduated high school. So I have 2 kids in college, empty nest. And I told my kids, I said, of course we want to see you, come home, visit, but don't expect that we're just sitting here pining for you, because we are people. We have friends. We have people that we're not always going to be home every weekend when you want to come visit. So give us a heads up.
Mm-hmm.
Because in their minds, like, oh, it's mom and stepdad, but they're always going to be there. I'm like, yes, we were always here for you, but we may not always be here for you, because we do have lives too. And helping them see that those identities, that's always been part of my identity. They haven't necessarily seen it all the time, right?
Yes.
So.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's such a great point. I love that. And, to your point, like things will change, but it's funny because I was on with a client earlier today. It was a new potential client, I will say. And I had almost the exact conversation about the values. And I said to him, because I do work with men as well, but I said to him, I go, I want you to spend a little time on homework looking at your values. And he was like, oh, okay. And to your point, and I said, but I want you to narrow it to your top 5. And he goes, okay. And I go, okay, it's a lot harder than you think it will be. And I said, but I want you to spend some time really thinking about it. And why? Why are those your top 5 values? Because to your point, like today it might be this, but a year from now it might not be. And so when you're going through these transformations or transitions, it's knowing where you are right now. And then how does that set you up for the longer run?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So, I know that I want to get into the burnout piece, because we're on I don't even know what word to, like supersonic speed acceleration. Like I woke up this morning and I went, holy, how are we in the middle of we're in the middle of summer basically already. And it's what, how is this happening already so fast? But, leaders are having to manage, navigate so much complexity in our world today. And this burnout is very real, and it is happening exponentially, like so much faster than it used to. So what are your thoughts on how do we recognize the early signs of it from your lens? And then what do we start to do about it? Because if you're that breadwinner in your case, right? Like if you're that breadwinner in the family and you feel like I don't have another choice, how do you start to navigate that burnout?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting because like you said, the world is a lot right now. Life is a lot. And, we're bombarded by all these things that we can be doing or that we should be doing, or, especially when you get into that leadership position that's expected of you. And some of those things may actually be expected of you, and some of those things may just be beliefs you have about what's expected of you.
Yes.
So there's a little difference there. But I think all these things contribute to that burnout, because we, especially when somebody's that overachiever, that high performer, that high achiever, we reward them with more responsibility. And yet no one necessarily teaches people how to scale their identity to match, right? So when burnout starts showing up, it can lead to, I mean, we see our patterns come up. So this pattern of perfectionism, this pattern of overfunctioning. And when all that's, misaligned with our identity, all of that contributes to this burnout. So it might be showing up as brain fog, as irritability, as just feeling disconnected from that joy or that purpose that we had. With a lot of my clients, we're talking to them and I'm saying, well, all of these things, you started this role, you started this career, you took this opportunity because you loved the work. You were excited about it. You got into leading people, you got into doing this stuff. And now you're going through the motions. Like on paper, you're incredibly successful. But the reality is you're not connected to it. That impact you thought you were going to have, that fulfillment you thought you were going to feel, it's not there. And I think part of the catch for a lot of people is this belief we picked up along the way. Again, I think of gifted kid syndrome, that overachiever syndrome, that as long as I'm productive, then I'm adding value. I have worth. My worthiness comes from the productivity. And it's so hard for people to realize that rest is productive.
Oh,
being
huge.
able to stop. Because we know there's so much research on sleep now. They're saying, okay, if you're pulling an overnighter to study and you're not sleeping, you're not going to remember as well as if you actually rest. Being able to sleep is what changes those from short-term memory into long-term memory. You're going to do better on the test if you don't pull the all-nighter, if you do sleep for a few hours. And that's just, illustrative of how important it is to rest. But because we have this belief that resting is lazy, or if I'm resting, then someone's going to judge me. They're going to think I'm not working as hard as they are, or as hard as I should be working. We get into this cycle of just looking for the next thing that we can check the box, so we can be productive. We can do this. We can get that recognition of I'm never stopping. And I love this idea of grit and resilience. I think grit and resilience are incredibly important, but not to the extent that we are letting go of rest, not to the extent that we are perpetrating burnout and celebrating it. Yeah. Like nobody's leading at their best when they're exhausted.
Yeah. No,
and
exactly.
So when you start seeing those warning signs, when we start getting that disconnection, when we just start white knuckling it through the day. I remember there'd be years where I was like, I'm having complete conversations like this. It wouldn't be till the end of the day that I would relax my jaw and go, oh, how long have
Why
I
am I
been
so tense in here?
How long have I been talking through clenched teeth and nobody said anything because they're like, oh, Benah's going. She's got her work on. But one of the things I tell my clients is when you find yourself doing that white knuckle, just pause the performance. Sometimes leadership is performative, right? We have to let everybody know that they're leaders on top of it. But pause that performance long enough to ask, what is actually driving your choices? Are you showing up that way because you think it's actually the way to be an effective leader? Or are you showing up that way because you have a belief that if you don't do it, you're going to fail, or someone's going to judge you, or you're not going to be relevant? Or what is actually driving that? What are your limiting beliefs that you've picked up from your years of conditioning that made you think this is how you have to be? And is that actually helping you be who you are and who you want to become? The leader you want to be showing up as? Is that constant productivity? Is that constant burnout? Because the reality is when leaders take that step back from the exhaustion, they take that step back from the burnout, and they model rest. When they go on vacation and actually don't check their email 7 times a day,
yes,
it models for their team that that's okay, that that's expected.
It's huge.
And the more the leader is showing up rested and refreshed, we know that helps focus. We know that helps, energy and outcome. Then the team is going to do that too. And before you know it, people are engaged again. People are able to come up and give some of that discretionary effort to their jobs because they go, oh, I actually took a break. And by the way, I had this insight when I was exhausted and I was working too hard. I was never going to make that connection. But all of a sudden I see a solution that wasn't there before. Rest gives us that.
Yeah.
Burnout doesn't. Burnout may look good. It doesn't look good. We may believe that burnout is like, I worked the most today. Yeah. Every time a leader comes to me and they're like, oh, I'm working 80, 90 hours a week. I go, cool, you're really bad at boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what's going on here?
Celebrating that. What are you not delegating? Yeah. Because our leaders shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't have to do that to be successful.
Yeah. No, 100% agree. I mean, I do a lot of work on conscious leadership for that exact reason, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's how are we responding? How intentional are we with the choices that we're making? And you'll get often pushback to, oh, my company expects. And then it's like, okay, well, do they really? To your point, is that a belief that you have? Because maybe you grew up in a household where your parents expected, right? Or whatever. I mean,
or you believe that they did. Yeah.
You believe that they did. Exactly.
I love getting those gold stars. It's that little dopamine hit. Like, oh, I have a chart of gold stars.
Exactly.
Have you talked to your family lately? Like, what is your gold star?
Yeah. And that's so important because to your point about, that space that's required, when you're able to do that, creativity flows so much easier. That prefrontal cortex can be at its premium, right? Because it's like, oh, I don't have a million check boxes in my head right now going, did I do this? Did I do that? And physically, and I work a lot on this part, but from a physicality aspect, if you're not listening, your body will shut down physically, because eventually your body says, there's way too much catabolic energy here. You're resentful because you're working 90 hours a week. And your body finally says, well, you're not going to listen to me. I'm going to make you listen to me. And that's where a lot of disease or dis-ease shows up in the body.
Gave myself an ulcer in grad school. Yep.
Right. And likewise, autoimmune disease, right? Yep. Because I didn't listen and it took 3 hits over the head before I went, oh, that's what you're trying to tell me.
Exactly.
So those are very real phenomenons that happen. And so those early warning signs, like what are some of those to, because is it just, oh, I had a tough week? Because I'll hear this, right? Clients will say, oh, I've just had a really tough week because I was traveling and then, the kids had extracurriculars. But what are some of those warning signs that says you're on the cusp? You're teetering here.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is when you find yourself saying, well, after this week, things will settle down. No, if you're always waiting for that next moment to take your breath, that's a sign that you need to put some brakes on. You need to reevaluate what you're focusing on, where you're spending that time. Like I said, when you find yourself white knuckling through the next meeting, the next experience, or I'm just going to get through this stage, when you're, that irritability piece comes up. I always tell people, I'm like, if you're slamming the door and kicking the dog when you walk in the house, maybe that you're bringing some stress home that you don't need to, right? Maybe that's a sign. Yes. I mean, things come up out of our control all the time. And it's a matter of saying, how much choice do I have in this moment for what I'm focusing on, the impact I'm going to have? We get into these habits of spending time worrying about these outcomes. But like you said, when you are taking that step back, when that prefrontal cortex is functioning, you're able to see not just the issue in front of you, but where those other dominoes are going to fall. You can predict down the path of going, okay, here are a couple options. And if I take this step, maybe then I'll be able to delegate and ask for help. And it's a lot of it is just about reframing. Yeah. Like taking a break doesn't mean you're lazy. It means that you need that rest to get to the next level. Delegating doesn't mean that you can't do the task. It means that you trust your team to do what you hired them for. But so many leaders, when we get into that space, especially from all the uncertainty we're dealing with, we believe that if we're being productive, we're controlling these things. That perfectionism habit comes up that we're like, oh, but everything has to be perfect. And if I hold on to it, then I'm going to execute it and, I don't have to worry about it. And you go, no. Like by holding on to it, you're ending up micromanaging, which nobody wants.
Exactly.
You're ending up conveying to your team that you don't trust them. Yeah. And guess what? The people that you recruited, they're going to find somewhere else where they can do the work. You're going to lose good people because you're holding on so tight. And it's not serving you either. You're actually not performing as well as you think you are. Yeah. So
I love that. And you're so right. I mean, when that trust gets broken because they feel like you're micromanaging, right? Yes. Like I spend a lot of time, I use the fishing analogy often with clients because I could take you out fishing and, people go, Vicki, I don't fish. I'm like, okay, but just go with me on the example, right? I could take you out and we could go fishing today. I can catch the fish and feed you, or I can take you out and I can teach you how to catch your own fish and feed you for a lifetime, right? And leadership is about how you teach your people to feed themselves for a lifetime.
Exactly.
No different than raising kids, right? Like our jobs is to help them be self-sufficient and independent. And those clues you're talking about, I think, are super important to recognize. Like, am I, because I'm overworked or overstressed or feeling burnt out, am I overemphasizing things that then create that ripple effect for everybody else? And that is huge, because you're absolutely right. People will say, I don't want to be here because I am being micromanaged.
Yeah.
They want to be empowered. They want to be trusted that you hired me for expertise, right?
Yeah,
or if you're the one always telling them what to do, that also reinforces that you don't trust that they can do the job that you've hired them to do. Because they go, well, why should I make a decision? Because, Vicki's going to tell me what to do anyway. And then it's on her. It's not on me. I'm not responsible any longer. And leaders struggle with, because they're holding on, right?
Yes.
And to your point, the white knuckling, they're just barely hanging on. So what happens when they start to surrender? When they say, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think I always want to emphasize that when you surrender, it's not about weakness. It's about finding the clarity of where your energy actually needs to go. When you let go of that control, you're letting other people step up. It's creating that space for trust, for creativity, for other people to have the impact. Because, I mean, yes, the goal is to work to live, not live to work.
Mm-hmm.
And yet most people, you want to have an impact in your job. You want to feel fulfilled. You want to be working in, an organization that values you. Mm-hmm. And when leaders surrender, and it's about surrendering their ego, surrendering their need for perfectionism, and surrendering that fear. When they're able to do that, that's what makes them more magnetic. That's what makes them be a leader that people actually want to follow. So when leaders stop trying to do everything, they actually become that version of themselves that is a better leader.
Yeah. Love that. And that's so true, because your influence shifts.
Yes.
And you're not trying to control. It's a natural, organic way of people they're inspired by you. Yes. They trust you. They want to follow. Where are you taking me next? Yeah. Right? I believe in you.
Yeah, because when you're not trying to control everything, when you actually surrender, then that gives you the space as the leader to speak about the vision, to make it compelling, to understand what it is that drives your team, so that you can speak in their language and make sure the people who need connection are getting connection. The people who need the spotlight are getting that ego boost, so that they're contributing, so that they're all in on a shared goal, a shared vision for where you're going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so important. So important people feel seen, heard, valued. I actually was talking to a woman the other day, and she had attended a webinar that I did on leadership presence. And we set up a call after, because she was like, I have some questions. I was like, yeah, great, no problem. Anyway, we did a couple of things, and I gave her a couple of homework assignments, and she did it. And she messaged me later, and she said, oh my gosh, Vicki, she said, it's the first time I have felt seen or heard in the last couple of years. Yeah, and I said, wow. I said, so how do we do more of that? How do we help? Because that was important to her. Her goal was to be seen, to be heard, and be able to share her expertise. And I said, so how do you do more of that so that it feels good and purposeful for you? And, we underestimate that, I think, sometimes, because we think, okay, we just have so much to do. But there can be very simple ways that we make somebody feel heard, acknowledged, to be validated.
Exactly. Yeah. And even the people who don't crave the spotlight, there's still a basic human need for feeling valued.
Yes.
And it's about understanding your team well enough to know, okay, this person wants the public recognition. This person does not. This person, if I call them out on the team Slack or in a team meeting, they're not going to feel the recognition I would want them to feel. So that person, they may need a gift card. They may just need a thank you note. They may need something for the recognition that is different than, other team members.
Yeah. Yeah. No, great point. Because that is very important. So that again goes back to knowing your team, right? Exactly. Know your team, know what they need, because each one will be different. And I mean, that could take us on a whole nother podcast
We
episode.
can talk about that for another hour.
Right? Like, no, seriously, because, often you'll get leaders who are like, nope, this is the way I am. And it's like, well, it's not about you. It's actually about the people you lead, and each one of them are different. And so how do you vary your style based on what their needs are? An introvert versus an extrovert is a classic example of, I'm a high extrovert, so I might need to be more in more social settings. And where as an introvert, that would be torturous. But they are great observers. There's so much knowledge that they're accumulating just by watching. And so how do you tap into that person and validate them for what they're taking from the situations?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Love that. So tell us a little bit about your own journey when you made this transition from, being a clinical or a psychologist into coaching, and what prompted that?
Yeah. I've had quite a few turning points in my life, and most people would think, oh, the cancer did it. And it wasn't. the cancer actually didn't change me as much as one would think. I kept doing that high performing, high achieving thing for several more years. And about 8 years ago, I was working in the nonprofit space, and I literally had a dream where my kids were, I think I had one in middle school and one about to go into middle school. And I had a dream where I had stayed up all night preparing costumes for them for some parade, and I fell asleep while I was doing it. And in the dream, my boss was waking me up, telling me I was late for work. And I literally woke up from the dream in real life going, I'm missing it. And I had this moment go, oh, I want to be here for my kids at this stage of life. I do not have the work-life balance. I mean, the work I was doing was very important. It was, child abuse prevention work. And I thought, if I am this burned out and exhausted doing work that matters, this success that I have is not aligned with the version of my life that I actually want at this stage. But because I was a cancer survivor, I had a belief that I could not be an entrepreneur. I thought I was always going to have to be an employee to have health insurance coverage. And luckily, thanks Obama, I was able to get health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. And I had this moment where I was like, oh, I can be an entrepreneur. This goal that I've had, because I've always coached people in various roles. I spent time in leadership development in different organizations. And I thought, I can make this a reality. So having that moment of just kind of complete burnout and exhaustion was that turning point where I thought, it's not enough to just be successful on paper. Because I had a great title, great job. It was impactful work. I wanted to be aligned with what really mattered to me. And at that stage of my life, flexibility has always been one of my core values, but it became kind of my top core value. I was like, in this moment, I need more flexibility than this 8 to 5 job is going to give me. And of course, as an entrepreneur, I work all the time. I work crazy hours. It's not about working less, but it's about being able to manage my work around when my kids needed me.
Yeah.
And now here I am 8 years later, and I'm going to have 2 college kids. I go, oh, I suppose I could go back to an 8 to 5 job if I wanted. Like, that flexibility isn't as necessary, but I still really like it. So, I love the work I do with my clients. So there's not big.
Good for you.
Big a draw.
No, that's awesome.
It wasn't even so much that coaching was a pivot. It was about coming home to who I was in that moment and who I wanted to be.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Wow. Like, that's very powerful and takes a lot of courage to be able to do that, because, having that security, that stability is also very important, but being able to take that jump and saying, no, this is really about what resonates most with me and what I need in this moment. That is incredible. So good for you for making that jump. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Very, very powerful. So what would be, because I'm just watching our time, what would be one thing you would want our audience to walk away with today to, take that risk or recognize where they are and where they want to go? What would you want to share?
I think the biggest thing is notice what you're white knuckling. Recognize that the things you're holding on to the hardest are usually the things that it's either time to let go, or it's at least time to kind of think critically about. Because when you ask yourself, who do I need to become so that I can lead with less effort, more impact? I mean, ultimately, that's what all of us want. We want to make an impact. We want to add value, and it shouldn't be at the expense of everything else. So what do I need to let go of? What do I need to look at that I'm white knuckling? And maybe it's just as easy as delegate something today that doesn't require you. Let go something that maybe somebody else can. You're not letting go because you can't do it, but it's because you don't have to. And recognize what are those things that you're holding on to and white knuckling simply because you're used to doing it. And maybe you can let go of those things. You can start delegating them. You can start easing some of those things out, because that's going to give you that space to maybe go rest, maybe surrender a few things.
Love that. Wow. That's a great prompt and a great invitation, audience, to really look at what are you holding on to and why? How is that serving you? So, Dr. Benah Parker, where can people find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. So, LinkedIn is just Benah Parker. And also my website is level42consulting.com.
Nice. Anything we didn't cover you want to make sure our audience hears before we wrap up today?
Oh, I can keep talking all day long. I love this conversation, but I think we've covered the burnout conversation well.
Okay, nice. Well, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your journey with us. I mean, like the courage that you've modeled, and I'm sure that's been great for your kids as well, because they see that, that resiliency and that perseverance and how important it is to really align with how do you want to shape your life? How do you want it to be so that you can be fully who you are?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Well done. And audience, thank you. If this episode resonated with you, or you have someone in your life that this would be the perfect episode for them to listen to, please do share it. Like, no harm in that. That just shows that you care about them and you want them to be in alignment with who they are. So we'd love for you to share the episode. And of course, at Women in Leadership Empowered, if you go visit our website at wilempowered.com, we have 2 free mini series that you can listen to. One is about fear, the other is about habit, and those are great opportunities for you to chime in to what you need and how that's going to best serve you. So we thank you so much for being here today, and we'll see you on the next Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Take care, everyone, and have a brilliant day. Thank you for joining us for WIL Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.wilempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.